Up next in the broadcast this week, Korea holds high-level diplomatic talks with two of its biggest and closest partners, the United States and China. But there may be some elephants in the room over conflicting interests in defense and development. In line with the president's creative economy drive, Korea's 7th new innovation center opens in Busan and features a $200 million fund to foster new businesses in distribution, film, and the Internet of Things. And despite lower gas prices, hybrid car sales gain ground in Korea as consumers are increasingly drawn to the technology and the benefits. Primetime News begins now.
Welcome to the program. You're watching Primetime News live from Seoul. I am Kang.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. We begin with the anticipation over back-to-back diplomatic talks for Korea and two of its closest partners this week, China and the United States.
Watchers say Seoul could find itself in a tough spot with some controversial issues on the table. Arirang's Hwang Seong-hee has the story.
Korea could find itself tangled between two superpowers following its back-to-back meetings with China and the United States this week. The touchy subjects topping the agenda are the possible deployment of the Washington-led THAAD missile defense system in South Korea and Seoul's participation in China's Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. Following talks with its South Korean counterpart Lee Kyung-soo on Monday, Chinese Assistant Minister of Foreign Affairs Liu Jianchao said they'd had a very open and honest discussion about the THAAD deployment. Liu added that Beijing hopes Seoul will consider China's interest and concerns about the matter. Beijing is against the deployment because of concerns that its radar system, which can cover 1,000 kilometers, could be used to monitor mainland China. Although Seoul and Washington say there have been no official discussions on THAAD, the U.S. Forces Korea said last Thursday that it conducted site surveys on where to deploy the missile defense system. As for Seoul's participation in the AIIB, Liu said he reiterated China's hopes for Korea to join the bank as a founding member. The AIIB, aimed at creating a new financial order centered around China, is opposed by the U.S. because it believes Beijing could use it for political purposes. Seoul will reportedly make its final decision on joining this new financial institution later this month. And all this comes just a day before U.S. Assistant Secretary of State Daniel Russell meets with South Korean officials. While Russell is widely expected to address these two sensitive issues, an official at Seoul's foreign ministry brushed off the speculations, saying that his visit has nothing to do with the THAAD deployment or the AIIB. Hwang Seong-hee, Arirang News.
Senior officials from Korea and Japan have agreed to continue their efforts to resolve the issue of Tokyo's wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women. Korea's chief delegate Lee Sang-duk and his Japanese counterpart Junichi Ihara met in Seoul for talks on Monday, the 7th of its kind. Seoul's foreign ministry said the talks were meaningful and that both sides believe that the issue should be solved by this year. Korea wants Japan to take sincere steps to compensate the Asian victims, but Tokyo insists the matter was settled through a bilateral treaty signed in 1965. Seoul also called on Tokyo to take cautious action over issues that could raise tensions between the two countries, including Abe's upcoming statement. UN Secretary-General Ban KiMoon, who is visiting Japan, has urged the leaders of Korea, China, and Japan to resolve their disputes over history. Secretary-General Ban made the comment during an interview with Japan's NHK. He called on the Japanese leader in particular to have a broader, future-oriented vision toward resolving historical matters at the earliest date possible, pointing out that many see the 21st century being led by Asia-Pacific countries. He said it's imperative for the three countries to keep the peace and engage in mutual cooperation.
Korea has opened its 7th Innovation Center, this time in the southeastern port city of Busan. As part of President Park's Creative Economy Drive, the government hopes to transform Busan's manufacturing-centered economy into a service-led growth engine of the future. But experts say commitment from the corporate community will be the key to its success. Our Chery looks into the details.
In cooperation with retail giant Lotte Group, Korea's latest innovation center in Busan will set up a $200 million fund to foster personnel and support startups in distribution, film, and the Internet of Things. It plans to offer a one-stop counseling service on development, marketing, and commercialization of innovative products and help diversify Busan's traditionally strong shoe and fisheries industries.
전통 상품은 물론 혁신 제품의 가치와 상품성을 높여서 한국의 대표 상품으로 도약하게 만드는 유통 혁신의 거점이 될 것입니다.
Lotte, which also runs an entertainment business, will join hands with the government's new cultural creativity complex to build an ecosystem for Korea's film industry. In line with the government's goal to establish a global Internet of Things hub by 2019, the Busan Center will test potential commercialization of related technologies and nurture startups that integrate the technologies in the safety and tourism sectors. As part of President Park's Creative Economy Drive, the government plans to build 17 innovation centers around the country, each teaming up with a conglomerate to encourage creativity and help fledgling companies commercialize their products globally.
The success of these centers is linked to how smoothly conglomerates and SMEs will cooperate, how much of an initiative they will take, and their intent to participate.
Placing a greater emphasis on the conglomerate's willingness to generate output, experts say that in order for the Park administration's innovation initiatives to bear fruit, succeeding administrations will have to continue to support these centers and their projects. 최유선, Arirang News.
If you've been thinking about going green with your next auto purchase, so are more Korean consumers these days.
Saving at the pump is luring more drivers to hybrid cars, but the higher sticker cost is still putting buyers off. Our Kim Ji-yeon takes a closer look in this week's Industry Insight.
Despite falling oil prices, Korean drivers are increasingly turning to hybrid cars, powered by a combination of gas and electricity. Around 5,200 hybrids were sold during the first 2 months of this year alone, led by Hyundai Motors Sonata Hybrid. The driving force behind the hybrid's popularity is a change in public perception, as myths surrounding hybrids are debunked. When consumers hear the words electric vehicle, they think of plugs, cords, and wall sockets. But today's hybrids don't necessarily have to be plugged in. Auto engineers have developed a system known as regenerative braking that helps cars retrieve and store energy.
Energy normally lost when the car slows down or stops is reclaimed and sent to the rechargeable batteries. And then the gas engine also transfers energy to the batteries automatically.
Another common misconception is that hybrid drivers are paying more just to save the environment. But in reality, it's not all about altruism. Drivers can actually save when they go hybrid. The sticker price for a Sonata hybrid starts at $27,000, just $1,800 more than a non-hybrid Sonata. Assuming gas price remains at $1.30 per liter, Hyundai says consumers can save nearly $3,200 over a 5-year period.
A drop in gas prices doesn't automatically mean that it's going to be cheaper to keep a gasoline-based model. Right now, gas is at about 1,471 or $1.30 per liter, which isn't cheap. And consumers think the low oil price trend isn't going to last long.
Also, drivers who buy a hybrid this year will be eligible for various local tax cuts and government subsidies. with hybrids that emit less than 97 grams of carbon dioxide per kilometer, which includes the Sonata Hybrid, Toyota's Prius line, the Lexus CT200H, and the Ford Fusion. Drivers can save up to $3,600. Hyundai says it plans to boost the Sonata Hybrid's fuel efficiency by 25%. It's also planning to expand its lineup to draw the average driver, starting with its first plug-in hybrid set to debut at the Seoul Motor Show in April. Hyundai Motor Group Chairman Chung Mong-gu laid out plans to invest $73 billion into its facilities and R&D divisions through 2018. 85% of that will go towards improving standards, including plans to develop future hybrids. Kim Jung, Arirang News.
The average growth rate of sales of non-financial listed firms here in Korea has been decreasing for the past couple of years, and last year it actually turned negative, with many manufacturers seeing their sales and profits slump. Song Ji-sun has more.
Korean manufacturers entered a phase of negative growth last year. According to the Federation of Korean Industries on Monday, sales of over 1,000 listed companies decreased 1.5% as of the third quarter of last year, compared to the same period a year earlier. Profit growth also slowed to negative 18% last year, from a 1% growth in 2013. The trend was more noticeable among manufacturers, which account for more than 70% of the firms surveyed. Their combined profit dropped from $75 to $62 billion, a 23% fall from a 9% expansion in 2013. 7 out of Korea's 10 largest companies in terms of revenue saw their profits drop 30% on average on slumping domestic demand, coupled with slowing exports due to weakened global demand. And that includes Korea's largest companies and conglomerates like Samsung Electronics, Hyundai Motor Group, SK, and Hanwha. Officials at the Federation of Korean Industries say manufacturers need government support for more business-friendly policies. They say such a slowdown could dent the pace of new job creation and facilities investment. Industry analysts point out that companies first need to restructure and cut costs to improve their profitability. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
And with a protracted economic slump, last year was a bad year for Korean companies in another aspect. In 2014, the number of Korean firms recording a decline in their credit ratings reached a 15-year high. The Korea Investor Service on Monday says only 15 of some 370 companies saw their credit ratings rise last year, while about 40 suffered a downgrade. The figures represent the lowest and highest within a 15-year period since 1999. By industry, manufacturing companies saw the largest number of ratings downgrades, followed by the service and financial sectors. The fierce competition in the job market and rising youth unemployment has inspired many university clubs to focus on building the skills necessary for later in the workforce. But it's also a fight to gain entry into these organizations. Our Kwon So-hwa takes a look at the new way Korean college students are spending their leisure time.
One of the excitements for a Korean freshman is participating in a 동아리, the Korean word for an extracurricular club at a university. And these days, the most popular clubs are those that will help students prepare for getting a job, such as management or startup clubs.
The open spots in our club filled up in just 5 days.
That's led to a fierce competition for entry to the clubs. What you see here is not a job interview. These seniors are testing freshmen on whether they are qualified to be a member of their group. All this competition seems to have helped, as many club members have successfully entered the workforce.
We believe that once we go through the club's curriculum and events, we build up the knowledge and traits that are needed in the workplace.
The rise in the number of these extracurricular clubs has followed the rise in Korea's youth unemployment rate, a problem that can't be solved solely by higher education. Despite a university entrance rate of around 70%, statistics show that it's not easy for members of the younger generation to get a job. According to Statistics Korea, the unemployment rate of young Koreans ages 15 to 29 hit a record high of over 9% last year. Still, the clubs may help with the job hunt, though there are drawbacks.
A university is not only a place to prepare for getting a job, it's a place to build up one's knowledge of the humanities and social relations.
Some have also expressed concerns that university students will have to face employment worries after graduation in any case, and that in the meantime, they won't get to enjoy just being a student. Hon-soa, Arirang News.
Three British teenagers are back in London after their alleged plans to join the Islamic State militant group in Syria were foiled over the weekend.
With more, we turn to Paul Yee at the News Center. Paul, there's been an alarming trend of radicalized youth from foreign countries seeking out IS. Just a few weeks ago, we saw 3 British schoolgirls flee to Syria through Turkey.
Well, authorities say there's definitely similarities in these cases. Both incidents involved young people in their middle to late teens who may have been lured in by the extremist group through social media. Now, this latest trio was caught in Turkey and deported back to the UK on Saturday. They were later released after being questioned on suspicions they were plotting terrorist acts. Our Shin Se-min has more.
3 British teenagers suspected of trying to enter Syria to join the Islamic State militant group have been returned to the UK and were released on bail late Sunday local time after being questioned by counterterrorism officers for 24 hours. The suspects, 2 17-year-old boys and 1 19-year-old man, all from London, were first reported missing late Friday night and were stopped by authorities in Turkey on suspicion of preparation to commit terrorist acts. It marks the first successful cooperation between the two countries on this issue, as the suspects were stopped by intelligence officials in Turkey after being alerted by British officials. The identities of the 3 haven't been disclosed. This case comes a matter of weeks after 3 British teenage girls traveled to join the jihadist group in Syria. Around 600 British nationals are believed to have already gone to Syria or Iraq to take up arms or become jihadi brides. Over in Iraq, the joint military Shia militia operation to free the city of Tikrit is taking a breather as they wait for reinforcements before they push to retake the entire city. Troops there have been slowed by sniper fire and booby-trap buildings. Meanwhile, Kurdish Peshmerga fighters are reporting that Islamic State militants could be using chlorine as chemical weapons in Iraq's north and west. Security forces have sealed off the area where the containers were found and alerted Baghdad authorities. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Turning now to the U.S. authorities in the state of Missouri have made an arrest in connection to last week's shooting in Ferguson that left 2 officers wounded. Police have released a video of the 20-year-old gunman named Jeffrey Williams. He was caught and charged on Saturday with 2 counts of first-degree assault. St. Louis County Prosecutor Robert McCullough said Williams fired the shots from a moving vehicle outside the Ferguson Police headquarters during a peaceful gathering of protesters last Thursday. He added that Williams, who is from the St. Louis area, confessed to pulling the trigger.
Essentially what we've charged him with is firing shots. It's possible at this point that he was firing shots at someone other than the police, but struck the police officer. So the charge is still assault in the first degree. They're Class A felonies for striking those 2 officers.
Authorities will now try to determine the motive behind the shooting, as Williams claimed his target was not the officers, but someone in the crowd with whom he had a dispute. This latest incident has yet again raised tensions in the U.S. town following a series of violent protests last year over the killing of an unarmed black teenager by a white police officer. And shifting to Japan, the country's most profitable auto manufacturer, Toyota, has reportedly turned down the biggest wage hike request by its labor union in nearly 17 years. According to Bloomberg, union sources say management offered a counter-proposal on Monday. The pending deal outlines a monthly wage increase of about $33, falling short of the initial request by 1/3. The Japanese government has been pushing exporters to raise wages in return for its efforts in pushing down the yen. Leading domestic car makers, including Toyota, say the economic boost isn't enough to offset the higher labor costs. And finally, recovery efforts are underway in Vanuatu after a major cyclone ripped through the small island nation over the weekend. Disaster management officials and emergency crews say they're struggling to address the sheer damage. On Saturday, Cyclone Pam struck the capital city, flattening buildings and washing away roads with winds of up to 300 kilometers per hour. Speaking at a UN conference in Japan, the president of Vanuatu, Baldwin Lonsdale, said the storm had wiped out years of recent infrastructure development. He also stressed his country required immediate assistance.
What is happening now is that, as I have said over and over again, that the people of the Republic of Vanuatu, they need humanitarian assistance at the moment. And I'm very pleased with the international communities that they have responded to my appeal, which is going through to Vanuatu right now.
Australia was one of the first countries to answer the call. Sydney pledged nearly $4 million in aid, while New Zealand and Britain also promised up to $3 million worth of support. Vanuatu lies northeast of Australia and has a population of some 260,000. And that wraps up our look at international stories for now. I'll see you back here tomorrow night.
Hello everyone, I'm Stephen Che with the Sports Brief. South Korea once again displayed its dominance on the short track with Chae Min-jung crowned the ladies' overall champion at the World Championships in Moscow. The 16-year-old earned the 1500-meter bronze and was fourth in the 500-meter races before sweeping the podium Sunday, crossing the line first in the 1,000-meter race, and minutes later in the 3,000-meter super final, the teenager dashed to the top of the standings. Chae ended the day with the 3,000-meter team relay gold, capping off her spectacular Worlds debut and earning comparisons to last year's champ Shim Seok-hee, who came in third overall this year. Let's go to the KBL playoffs for the deciding Game 5 between the LG Sakers and Koyang Orions. It was a high-octane start for both teams, with LG taking the slim lead by halftime. Now in the second half, Koyang battled back to erase a 17-point LG lead in the fourth, pushing it to the final minute. But the Sakers held on with timely defense to win the series 3-2, and now face league champions Mobis in the semis. Over to pro volleyball, the V-League regular season came to a close with the final matches of round 6. For the ladies, Hyundai ENC beat KGC 3-1. On the men's side, Samsung Hwajae took down KEPCO 3-2. Now the playoffs start Friday with the second and third ranked teams battling in the 3-game series. The winners of the first round will face top-ranked Korea Expressway for the women and Samsung Hwajae for the men in the best-of-5 series later this month. Moving on, team communication was the key as South Korea's under-22 squad kicked off training camp for the AFC Under-23 Championship qualification. Manager Shin Tae-yong said that if the players are happy and a bit noisy and energetic during training, their communication and chemistry will improve during matches. Now, the 23-man squad finalized just last week has about 10 days to get it together, with the qualification opening on March 23rd and their first match on the 27th. Finally, American Jordan Spieth lifted the trophy at the Valspar Championship for a very special second career PGA Tour victory. On the third playoff hole, after finishing regulation tied for first with Patrick Reed and Sean O'Hare at 10 under par, Spieth sank the 28-foot birdie putt to seal the win. At 21 years and 7 months, he became the third youngest golfer to win multiple PGA titles, behind only Tiger Woods and Sergio Garcia on the list. That wraps it up for now. Your weather's up next. Good night.
Hello and welcome. I'm Kim Bo-kyung with the Weather Outlook. Hope you spent some time outdoors this afternoon, as the daytime high here in Seoul jumped to 16 degrees, while some cities down south peaked above 20 degrees Celsius. As the evening progresses, keep in mind that the mercury will drop to the low single digits. Currently, we are under mostly clear skies, but yellow dust is back and Seoul is getting 174 micrograms per cubic meter, which is approximately 3 to 4 times the normal levels. It looks like tomorrow will be another warm day, but rain clouds will gradually move in first over the southern regions, and showers should continue through Thursday, hopefully raising humidity levels. After the rain, it looks like conditions will continue to stay above seasonal average norms, so spring flowers should bloom earlier than expected. On to tomorrow's readings. Seoul reaches up to 18, Daegu and Gwangju 23. Meanwhile, Jeju hits 18, Dokdo 13, Mount Kumgang 8. Those are the updates we're following on this Monday evening. I'll see you soon.
And that's primetime news for this Monday. Thanks for watching. I'm Sean Lim.
And I'm Kang Chery. Have a great evening. We'll see you again soon.